Our first guest of this session is the one and only Justin Prochnow, a shareholder with Greenburg Traurig. Justin, thank you so much for being with me.
That flowed nicely right off there. After a number of years, it's finally got it down. The easy Traurig.
Yeah. Usually I screw up a lot on that, but yes, I've known you for so long. We've been you've been such a great partner to BevNET, and thank you so much for all your support. You've been a great friend to me, and we've had an opportunity to have some of the good times and some of the bad times. The bad times being this season of Manchester United. Finished in 6th place.
Started so nicely, and then.
Well, it didn't start nicely, but we had a good run from January to March. Yes. Anywho, we're here to talk about the
Manchester United, two men in blazers redux. Oh, wait.
We're here to talk about the legal and regulatory landscape for food and beverage, in particular beverage, which you are an expert in that field. So much being talked about, CBD, perhaps one of the hottest ingredients in recent memory for food and beverage. Still so many questions about what's going on. The legal and regulatory aspect of it seems to be changing by the day. Can you give us just sort of a broad overview in terms of how state and federal laws are changing and how it's affecting the industry?
Sure. I'd like to say you heard it here first a couple of years ago, but we did talk about it, I think, here in New York 2 years ago, when it still wasn't, half the products in the new beverage showdown being CBD or hemp. I mean, it is still the question I get more often than any other question from a wider range of companies, whether it's fitness companies and apparel companies, and of course, food, beverage, and supplement companies. And it's a difficult one because there is no, I tell everyone coming in, no matter what we talk about, there's not going to be a black and white, you do this and there will be no issues, because there's still a lot of uncertainty from both the federal and the state regulators. The FDA has said they don't believe CBD is a permissible ingredient in a food, beverage, or supplement, not really because of any safety concerns, but because of a very technical part of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act that says if an ingredient was investigated as a new drug, you can't turn around and use it in a food, beverage, or supplement.
So to be clear, the beverages that you're referring to in the new beverage showdown today and others that we've seen here at BevNET Live are not technically in compliance.
It depends. Okay. There's a good lawyer answer. It depends on who you ask. The FDA would take the position that CBD is not a permissible ingredient. And then we get into, is an ingredient, does that mean anything that has CBD in it? Like, let's say the FDA said caffeine wasn't a permissible ingredient. Would that mean that coffee couldn't be sold anymore? What the FDA was really looking at, and what we believe, is that the FDA was looking at CBD isolate, and that was what was investigated by GW Pharma, and that a full-spectrum hemp extract or a broad-spectrum hemp extract with some amount of CBD in it is a different ingredient. So that's certainly the tack that a lot of the companies in the industry are taking, is we can legally sell a full-spectrum hemp extract or a broad-spectrum hemp extract with some amount of CBD in it, and it doesn't have the same regulatory issues as a CBD isolate. Now, that is one side of the coin. What the FDA thinks, it's a little unclear. They had a big hearing 2 weeks ago where about 110 people got up and talked for 2 to 5 minutes on why they think CBD or hemp should be legal or not legal. And we're still waiting to see what the FDA is going to do about it. Right now, the FDA, basically the takeaway is, as long as you're not making crazy disease claims that it will cure cancer, epilepsy, and it's a safe product, the FDA is probably not looking to take a lot of action. The bigger risk right now is individual states, State Department of Health agency walking into your local bodega or something else and saying, hey, you got to pull all the CBD products off the shelves. And so we have, very sporadic regulation from state to state.
I mean, there was that story out there. I didn't really read too much into it, but it was definitely a catchy headline that a grandmother in Florida was arrested for having CBD oil on her.
Right, at Epcot Center, I think. As she was going through security, they arrested her. They, of course, since released and apologized to her, and we'll see what happens with that. But this is the issue, and it's not just companies selling it, but people buying it, certainly retailers, and you're really just rolling the dice. I'm based in Denver, pretty much do whatever you want in Colorado with hemp. but other states
and mushrooms, I hear.
right, and now psychedelic mushrooms. That's right. Look at the next new beverage showdown, the psychedelic mushroom.
I'm sure John
drink.
Craven would love that.
It's just been all over the board. So we spend. I mean, I still must spend half to 2/3 of my day talking to people about CBD and hemp, and I'm supposed to be a regular food, beverage, and supplement lawyer, but it's on the top of everyone's mind.
Now, I mean, the flip side or the other side of cannabis that everyone's talking about is THC as well. And one of the brands in New Beverage Showdown markets a CBD and THC infused beverage. The ones that the judges tried today were virgin, did not have either. But THC, a little bit of a trickier, if not a lot more tricky ingredient to work with, particularly because of the psychedelic effects, right? I mean,
well, yes. I mean, it's considered a controlled substance by it fits under the definition of marijuana under the Controlled Substances Act. So, if you're selling those products, you can only do it in states where marijuana is legal. You have to do it through a dispensary or some of those. So it definitely limits your range of where you can sell the product. You're not rolling out a nationwide, hemp product with THC in it.
Switching gears a little bit, one of the things that came out recently from the FDA was some guidance about Best Buy dates. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of talk about Best Buy versus Use By versus all these different things. A lot of it, I think, geared toward getting less food waste and less beverage waste. Can you sort of summarize what's been happening and why it's important for food and beverage entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's an interesting subject because technically under the law there is no requirement for a Best Buy date or a Use By date. What the FDA has said is if you put one on your package, you have to have some basis for doing it. You can't just arbitrarily pick a date like, okay, we're going to make the Best Buy date 1 year from now, in part because you want to move through product, and if people have products sitting there and do it, you have to have some basis, either stability testing or some other form of testing to justify what date you're putting on there.
And how do you advise entrepreneurs in terms of like what they should be saying? I mean, are you saying Use By or Best Buy? I mean, is there any kind of danger that they can put themselves in by using one or the other?
I mean, a lot of the companies I do, they put the manufacturing date on there and don't necessarily put it on there. I mean, unless you are aware of specific reason why you need to put it on there, typically you're not doing it. Again, you're responsible for all of your label claims. So if you put a date, if you know that your vitamins or minerals are going to dissipate over time, then you have to put a date on there that can justify that you will meet the claims throughout the shelf life of the product. So you have to do that. But otherwise, you have to put some sort of lot number or something on there in order to identify it. But otherwise, it's kind of up to the company.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, we only have a couple minutes left, but I wanted to ask you about some of the legal or regulatory issues that you see on the horizon as presenting a problem for food or beverage entrepreneurs. I mean, it's interesting because one thing that you were ahead of your time on was the fact that beverage companies were using a supplements fact panel when they should have been using a nutrition facts panel.
Right.
And that was, 6-7 years ago, and now you're starting to see a lot of that come back where seemingly, beverage brands are using that panel. Where do you stand on that?
I think those things are important. I mean, one of the reasons now why we think it's so important, I mean, as I said, I'm at Greenburg Traurig. It's a small boutique law firm of 2,185 lawyers. We have a growing food and beverage practice. We're doing a lot in the M&A space. And this is an issue that's coming up more and more when we're doing the due diligence for some of the private equity companies. They're looking at those types of things and seeing, is this company doing everything right? And when I'm doing the evaluation on that due diligence, we're looking to see, have they properly characterized this product as a beverage or as a supplement? Do they have nutrition facts when it really should be supplement facts? I mean, these are the types of things that the equity company is looking at to say, what type of risks are we going to have from buying this company? So it's really important that you look at those things from the beginning, make sure you're going down the right path so you don't have to make a switch in midstream because, we've had other ones where they wanted to sell it as a beverage or as a supplement, and the equity company comes in and says, we're not going to buy any supplement products. So you need to make sure that you switch it so that it's a nutrition fact. And if you've got ingredients that are botanicals that won't work in a beverage product, now all of a sudden you're in trouble. So it's really important to kind of look at those issues from the beginning, make sure you're going down the right track so you don't have to switch halfway through and go down a road you weren't ready to go down.
And we're just about out of time, but I wanted to say, Justin, it's always a good idea to hire a lawyer and one that you can rely upon for the right answers. And we rely upon you so often to get some of those answers. So thanks so much for what you do for BevNET and the beverage community. It's really, really valuable. So thank you.
I appreciate that. I've enjoyed working with BevNET, and certainly in my unbiased opinion, you should have a lawyer whenever you do anything.
Thanks so much, Justin.
Right, thank you.